Okay, so you've heard the terminology a million times, Bitcoin. Digital gold, future of money, that speculative thing everyone talks about. But for you, listening in, maybe the question isn't just what it is, but why? Why is it still such a huge deal right now in 2025, long after that first wave of hype?
That's exactly what we're going to unpack today. This is a real deep dive. We want to move past the buzzword,
Yeah.
using our sources. Let's look at Bitcoin as a system. It's this revolutionary tech that's genuinely reshaping things, money, power, global finance. We need to trace where it came from, the ideology, understand the mechanics,
Mhm.
which are pretty unique, and really analyze its impact. Now it's huge.
Yeah, that origin story is fascinating because it wasn't just like some tech bro inventing something cool, right? It felt like a statement, a socioeconomic protest almost.
Oh,
What
yeah.
was the spark? What really kicked off the world's first working digital currency?
It was absolutely a direct response, a coded one even, to a total loss of trust. Bitcoin launched in 2009. You remember, right after the 2008 global financial meltdown?
Right.
The sources we looked at really emphasized it came from this deep frustration, not just banks collapsing, but governments hitting print on money for these massive bailouts, which, ultimately just devalues the savings of regular people.
So the main idea wasn't just let's make digital money. It was more like let's build a system that humans can't mess with, immune to politics, immune to bailouts.
Exactly. That's the core principle.
Yeah.
It was designed from the ground up to be the first truly decentralized currency. The white paper, that famous one, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, lays it out explicitly. It's a way for people to send money directly to each other. No need for a bank, no government decaying, it's just peer-to-peer. The goal really was financial sovereignty, freedom for ordinary folks written in code, basically.
Okay, but for that kind of revolution to actually stick, you need some serious tech behind it. We all kind of get the blockchain idea, the public ledger, but what's the real secret sauce? The thing that makes it truly tamper-proof? Why do people trust it so much?
Right, that's where we need to go a bit deeper than just public ledger. The security isn't just that it's visible, it's the cryptography, it's math. So each new block of transactions gets linked to the last one using a unique code, like a digital fingerprint. They call it a hash. Now, if someone tried to go back and change even one tiny detail in an old block, the hash for that block would instantly change. It wouldn't match the next block anymore. The entire global network, thousands of computers, would immediately see that mismatch and reject it. It breaks the chain.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. So it's not just a list, it's like a chain of digital Fort Knoxes all linked together, chronological, verified, and locked down by computing power. Which brings us to mining. If you've got these miners solving puzzles to secure it, how does that stay decentralized? Couldn't one big group just take over?
Yeah, good question. The source material's pretty clear on this. The decentralization works because there are thousands of these independent computers, these nodes and miners all over the world, all validating. No single company, no bank, no government controls the majority. It's spread out. And miners compete like crazy. They burn processing power energy to solve these really hard math puzzles and validate a batch of transactions. And the winner gets rewarded with new Bitcoin. That's how new coins are made. So this competition secures the network and distributes the new currency, but critically, it keeps any one entity from getting too powerful.
And here's maybe the most crucial difference the sources point out. Scarcity. Regular money, like dollars or euros.
Yeah.
Governments can just print more, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a crisis. Inflation happens, Bitcoin has a hard limit. Set in stone, or rather, code.
That hard cap, that's really the core value proposition. It's what lifts Bitcoin from just a payment system to this idea of digital gold. The code itself dictates. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist, full stop. Just think about that compared to the, endless money printing we've seen pretty much everywhere since 2008.
That's a really interesting point. And tying it back to today, 2025, the scarcity isn't just a fixed number, right? It gets reinforced. There's that event, the halving.
Precisely.
Oh, wait,
Halving, the reward miners get for adding a new block, gets cut in half automatically, roughly every 4 years. So the rate at which new Bitcoin is created slows down over time. Predictably, programmatically. This reinforces the scarcity, and yeah, it often leads to these supply shocks that impact the price. It's this fixed, automated monetary policy totally separate from any human committee or political agenda that attracts a lot of serious long-term investors.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the global impact now. Why does this tech, born back in 2009, matter so much today, especially when we talk about things like financial inclusion or freedom?
Well, a huge part of it is censorship resistance. Think about it. Billions of people around the world don't have access to traditional banks, or maybe they live in places with unstable governments or capital controls. With Bitcoin, Anyone, literally anywhere, just needs a basic smartphone and internet. They can send or receive value across borders
Yeah.
instantly without needing permission from anyone, no gatekeepers.
Yeah, I remember the sources hitting on that resilience factor too. That line about surviving, what, 14 years of crashes, bans, and
Uh,
what do they call it? FUD.
yeah, Fugi. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's that constant stream of negativity you hear. It's dead, it's banned, it's useless. But the fact that it keeps surviving these cycles, these attacks, it actually strengthens the perception of resilience. And here's a fascinating twist, the transparency paradox. People sometimes think crypto is all about secret anonymous transactions. But with Bitcoin, every single transaction is on that public blockchain forever. There are no hidden vaults, no secret off-balance sheet deals. That level of auditability actually prevents the kind of internal manipulation you can get in closed, opaque systems.
Okay, let's zoom into 2025 because things have really changed this year, haven't they? It's not just that the price is hanging around, say, $100,000 plus. The whole adoption landscape feels different, mature even.
It really has shifted from the fringes right into the financial core. I mean,
Yeah.
the biggest change has to be the institutional embrace. That's undeniable. Before, institutions were kind of dipping their toes, maybe skeptical. Now, you have giants like BlackRock, Fidelity, the world's biggest asset managers. And they're not just trading it. They're holding massive amounts of actual Bitcoin through these regulated spot ETFs in the US. This isn't just speculation anymore. This is them offering Bitcoin to their clients as a legitimate long-term part of a diversified portfolio.
But hold on, doesn't that kind of undermine the original point, the decentralized dream? If Wall Street giants are holding it all in these ETFs, isn't that just centralizing it again?
That's a really sharp question, and it's a valid concern people raise. And yes, the ETFs do introduce a layer of centralized custody for the people who invest through them. But, and this is crucial, they are buying real Bitcoin to back those ETF shares. So they're driving real demand on the underlying asset. More importantly, the network itself, the core protocol, the thousands of miners and nodes distributed globally that remains decentralized. Wall Street doesn't control the code or the consensus mechanism. The system itself is still immutable, even if the on-ramp for some investors looks more traditional now.
Okay, I see. And it's not just corporations jumping in. We've actually seen countries adopt it too. That moved from basically zero to a real geopolitical factor.
Absolutely. El Salvador kicked it off, making it legal tender. Now you see others, like the Central African Republic, reportedly holding Bitcoin in their national reserves. And this isn't just for show. It's strategic. Why would a smaller nation do that? Well, maybe to diversify away from total reliance on, say, the US dollar, or as a hedge against inflation risk from major global currencies. We're even seeing reports of local governments in the US exploring adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. It's a fascinating shift.
So, okay, it's a reserve asset for institutions and nations. But what about, like, actual use? Is anyone really buying coffee? Or a car? Isn't the network kind of slow for that everyday stuff?
They are, and that's thanks mainly to what are called Layer 2 networks. The sources gave some great examples like that Bitcoin Beach project in El Salvador. People there are literally using Bitcoin often through apps on their phones for everything. Tipping, groceries, rent, everyday life. The key technology enabling this is often the Lightning Network, maybe used through an app like Strike or something similar. That's what makes the small instant payments feasible.
Tell us a bit more about Lightning, especially for remittances, because that seems to hit that financial freedom point directly.
Oh, remittances are a huge, huge use case. It's solving a real problem right now. Think about migrant workers sending money back home to their families. Historically, they've paid insane fees, like 5%, sometimes even 10% or more, just gone to fees for wire transfers or services like Western Union. With Bitcoin, especially using the Lightning Network, those remittances can be sent pretty much instantly anywhere in the world for, well, fractions of a cent, often just pennies. That's a massive amount of money, billions globally, staying in the pockets of working families instead of going to intermediaries. That's direct impact.
Wow, okay. So it's clear Bitcoin has definitely grown up.
Yeah.
From, a niche internet thing to a serious global financial network. But we can't ignore the criticisms. We have to do the real talk section. Let's start with volatility. The price swings are wild. Doesn't that make it unstable, unreliable?
The volatility is absolutely real, no doubt about it. The price can move dramatically, very quickly. But context is important here. We're still, relatively speaking, in the early innings of global adoption for a fundamentally new type of asset, a new monetary network. Disruptive technologies almost always go through this phase of intense price discovery. I mean, the sources rightly point out, look at the early days of internet stocks, Amazon, for example. Huge volatility before things settled and the true value emerged.
Okay, fair point. What about the elephant in the room? Energy. Mining uses a ton of electricity. That's the criticism you hear constantly. It's bad for the planet.
Yes, and it's the serious criticism that deserves attention. Mining is energy intensive. That's how the security works, through proof of work. However, the narrative here is often way behind the reality. The industry dynamics are changing incredibly fast. We're seeing a very significant, measurable migration towards renewable energy sources. Why? Because solar, wind, hydro, they're often the cheapest power available, especially in remote areas. Also, miners are increasingly setting up shop near stranded energy sources like flared natural gas or excess hydropower that literally couldn't be used for anything else. They turn waste into value. So the environmental footprint is definitely improving. It's not this static disaster some portray it as.
And regulation. Governments were pretty hostile at first, right? Trying to ban it, calling it shadow money. That attitude seems softer now.
It really has evolved. Most major countries like the US, the EU, are moving away from outright bans. Instead, they're developing regulatory frameworks, treating Bitcoin as a digital asset, a commodity, something that fits into existing tax and legal structures. And honestly, this regulatory clarity, while maybe not what the earliest adopters wanted, is actually crucial. It reduces risk and uncertainty, which ironically helps fuel that institutional adoption we were just talking about.
Right. Okay, last big criticism. Speed. We touched on it, but the base Bitcoin network takes like 10 minutes or more to confirm a transaction. That's just too slow for buying that coffee, right? How is that really solved?
That's where layer 2 solutions are absolutely essential, and they work. We mentioned the Lightning Network. Think of it like an express lane built on top of the main Bitcoin highway. It lets users open up direct payment channels with each other. You can do tons of small instant transactions back and forth off the main chain almost for free. Then, only when you're done, you settle the final net difference back onto the main, slower, more secure base layer. It genuinely solves the scaling problem for everyday payments. Instant, global, super cheap. It works today.
This has been incredibly clarifying, really cutting through the noise. So if we sort of zoom out again, connect all these dots, the sources seem to be saying Bitcoin isn't just internet money, it's something bigger.
Much bigger, I think. It's the proof of concept. The first successful demonstration of a new kind of financial system, one that's borderless, mostly transparent, and doesn't rely on trusting intermediaries in the same way. And its existence, its success, it basically kicked off this entire wave of innovation. Everything from Ethereum and DeFi, decentralized finance, to stablecoins. And yeah, even the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies that governments are now exploring, they're partly a reaction to Bitcoin. So whether you love it, hate it, or are just watching from the sidelines, you kind of have to admit, it fundamentally changed how we think about value, trust, and maybe even freedom.
So the big question for you listening, what does this all mean? Bitcoin started as this cypherpunk rebellion against the system. 15 years on, it seems like it's actually reshaping the system from within. So here's a thought to chew on. Knowing everything we've discussed, the volatility, yes, but also the fixed supply, the decentralization, the growing global use, would you feel secure getting paid, like your salary, entirely in Bitcoin?
That really brings it home, doesn't it? From abstract asset to your actual paycheck.
Exactly. It makes you think. And hey, if this deep dive helped you make sense of these complex ideas, helped you get past those buzzwords, please consider supporting the show. Engaging with the video, subscribing, leaving a comment. It genuinely helps us out. Boosts visibility, lets the algorithms know people find this valuable, and that lets us keep doing this, bringing you this kind of in-depth look at the biggest stories in crypto every week. We really appreciate your support. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.